A very good evening. And I can see such wonderful messages coming up that you people were waiting for my session. Thank you so much. I feel honored. Today is a very, very, very simple topic which we are going to take up, which is single output costing, or you can say unit, job, batch costing. So this is what we are going to do today. You are open for any kind of doubts which you have. I will be using more of the text material because we hardly have any questions as far as this topic is concerned. Because when I talk about single output costing, or when I talk about batch costing or job costing, what do I mean by that? When I say single output costing, as the name suggests, that it is one action process, then if the unit comes in, one karke unit comes into existence, we say unit output costing. On the other hand, let's say I'm producing cold drinks, right? Thumbs up. Now there's a batch. Now let's say 20 cold drinks, 20 bottles I put together, and the production cycle is like such that I am producing 20 bottles at one time. Then you will say, ma'am, you are producing good in a batch. Then I call it batch costing. And if every time I am producing a product which is customer specific, right? And it is changing. It may not be the same for customer X. It may be different for customer Y. So in that particular situation, I don't say I'm doing single output costing or batch costing because it's not repetitive, right? It's not homogeneous. Every time the product that is coming out is tailor-made as per the customer. Then I say it's job costing. So that's all what you actually should know when you need to know about job costing, batch costing, single output costing. More of theory questions may be asked as far as this chapter is concerned. What is the difference between job costing and batch costing? Difference between job costing and process costing? Difference between job costing and contract costing? A lot of theory can be asked. As such, you'll be studying process costing. How do you find out the cost per unit? If a product is undergoing a process, that is, let's say sugar. Right. Now, sugar does not come into existence that I put the input and immediately the output of it is sugar. No, it doesn't happen like that. I put the sugar cane, then the sugar cane gets processed and something else comes into existence. Then that second, something else which comes into existence, which is the output of the first process, is then further processed. And then we come to get out with sugar. So maybe the sugar comes out into existence after 2 processes or after 3 processes. So there I need to follow the steps of process costing, right? Now, what does process costing, if you technically would like to know, would be? As such, you'll be doing it separately. But it's like if I put an input, if my input is 100 kgs, right? But the output is going to be 90 kgs. Then that 90 kgs, which is the output of process 1, is actually the input for process 2, right? So I need to know the cost of that process 1. I need to know the cost of that process 1. So every expenditure, material, labor, and all overheads which go down in process 1 get accumulated and become the cost of those 90 kgs for process 2, for output of that process 1. And then that output of process 1 becomes the input of process 2. Then it is processed. And if my final outcome comes after process 2, fair enough. If it doesn't, then the output of process 2 goes to process 3. Then maybe I get my output, final output, which I'm wanting to produce after process 3. So that's known as process costing. Now it's a continuous process till the time I actually get to achieve what I'm actually looking for. Job costing, as I said, it's tailor-made. It's like specific. The customer comes in and says, okay, I want this to be done in this particular manner. Then you say, okay, this is job costing because it is tailor-made, it is customer specific. So that's why the name is job costing. Let's say cycle repair. Let's take up the example of cycle repair. Now, I go up to the cycle repair person, only the seat of my cycle has gone bad. So I go up and he uses the material would be the cycle seat, and whatever time he will take to fix up that seat will be the labor charges. And of course, for the time which when that person is working, they will charge the overheads of that time on that work, right? That's known as job costing, right? I will try to elaborate more on it. Till then, let me see my wonderful students. Hi, good evening, good evening. So good to see all of you. Good evening, all of you. I can see some new faces today. Even I'm so happy to see all of you. Anushka, Vishwanath, Jyoti, Sudhi, Nancy, Vanchika, Manish, every one of you, so many, Sakshi, Anand. Thank you so much. Even I was missing you guys, but I was busy celebrating Ganpati in Mumbai. Anyways, so as I said, today is a very sweet topic, a very simple topic, which we are going to do in a relaxed manner. So just enjoy the topic. Hi, Divya. Now, let me share the screen with you. Let me share the screen with you. Let me see the study text. Okay. First of all, let's talk about job costing. Let us understand, and then we may, look into the study text. I took up an example of, let's say, a cycle stand, right? Let us try to understand, right? Let us try to understand in our own way, and then we can always look at the text. Let's say job X. Now the job X, which I went into the cycle stand, was my seat was bad. It was torn, so I decided to go and get my seat changed. On the other hand, my friend went in for job Y. The chain of the cycle had actually gone bad, so he had gone to replace the chain of the cycle. Now, let us understand one thing. The material which will be used in job X should be the seat. Yes, in my case, it will be the seat cover, right? And in my friend's case, it will be the chain. So that will be the material. Let's say in my case, the seat is of worth ₹100 and say the chain is of ₹200. Now this is job specific. What material do I need to incur for job X or for job Y? And let's say the labor, right? For fixing up the seat, let's say the labor requires half an hour, and I pay the labor at the rate of ₹40. So in my case, in case of job X, how much labor cost will be incurred? It will be ₹20. And let's say for fixing up the chain, you require some full 1 hour. Let's say arbitrary example, guys, right? It requires full 1 hour. So the chain cost here, labor cost here will be 40. Let's say overhead, we have found out as per the machine hour rate or as per the labor hour rate, whatever rate, we have found out that the overhead recovery rate is, let's say, at the rate of 60. Now, half an hour is spent. So in my case, 30 rupees is absorbed for job X. But in case of my friend, 1 hour is being spent. So the overhead is absorbed at the rate of 60. Now the cost for job Y is 300. The cost for job X is 150. Now here, the person who is doing this work for us is going to add his profit percentage. Let's say he always charges profit at the rate of 25% on cost. So he's going to add 25% profit on 150 or and 25% on 300, and then just give us the bill that this is what we want to charge for. Well, that's job costing. So as you can understand, job costing, both the jobs are not same, right? Job X may require a different material, job Y may require a different material. Labor time utilized may be different. Overhead absorption rate I have calculated. So I just need to absorb the overheads on job X, on job Y, depending on the time which is being spent. And then once I know the cost, I can add the profit and then furnish it. That's job costing. And when I talk about unit costing or when I talk about batch costing, the only difference is it's a similar product, right? It's a repetitive process. But only thing is in unit costing, one good comes into existence, and in a batch, at least, more than one. Let me put it like this. So it's a batch of, let's say, 20 cold drink bottles being produced together. So you say the work is being done in a batch, right? That's all we need to know as far as unit and batch costing is concerned. Right? Okay. Now, I think time for me to share the institute material, but till then, let me see if there's any question. Oh, I have a question from Abhishek. Hi, Abhishek. Ma'am, in an institute, a scientist doing research, how do we measure that? Okay. Now, Abhishek, a scientist doing research, how do we measure that? Now, scientists will be paid as per the number of hours which he is putting in. For example, the scientist would be saying that I would be requiring 100 hours of research has been spent for doing this particular work, right? I may be paying that person hourly, right? He's rendering services and I have specially hired him for that. Second is I may have an in-house research team. Now, in-house research team in ICAI may be like I have already appointed, let's say 8 people in ICAI. Their work is to continuously keep on looking into the study material and looking into the various changes which are coming in and keep on upgrading. Now, those people, they are in-house. Now, I say in-house means they're not consulting. They are employees of ICAI. So ICAI would be paying them salary, right? So they'll be more like fixed people. Now, whether they are doing a research or they're not doing research, they are a part of the organization. So that's how you value or measure it. So I think Abhishek have answered your question. Good evening, Naritharan. Very difficult to pronounce your name, but nice name. Hi, Charu. Ma'am, in cost sheet, where to write notional rent? Okay. Jasmine, in which topic you are asking me, Jasmine? That's important. Thank you, Rahul. Hi, Krishna. Krishna, you didn't get job costing. I'll do it again. Manish, in batch costing, all costs first allotted and apportioned in batch, and then batch cost apportioned to goods. Okay. So Manish, I'll answer your question, but first let me understand, because Krishna said he hasn't understood job costing. Okay. So I share the screen again because one of my friends want to understand job costing again. Okay. Okay. Let me take up an example. Let me say I'm a bakery shop. Right? I'm a bakery shop. Right? Now, Rahul, please try to understand. Now, let's say I am making cupcakes. Right? Now, in my one tray, this is one tray, right? I can make at one time, I can make 5 cupcakes together. Now, then I will say, I am not producing one cupcake. I'm producing it in a batch. They are all uniform. They're all uniform cupcakes, right? And so the basic qualitative characteristic is they're similar. They're homogeneously similar. They're similar products. Only thing is they're not coming into existence one unit by one unit. They are coming into existence 10 units together. So that's why it's a batch, right? So in one tray, I make 10 units together. That's a batch. So they're homogeneous, right? One thing clear, Krishna? Now, please tell me if it is clear, right? Now, I am the bakery shop, but I am making cake, right? Now, every cake is at, I'm very bad at drawing. Let's say this is a square shape. No, this is a sad. I'm bad at drawing. Let's say rectangle shaped cake. I have made, with a football ground on it. This was by customer A. Then the second cake was ordered to me by Krishna, by you. You ordered me, and it was in the shape of a heart, right? This was by customer B. Then Krishna, there was another cake ordered by you. I'm always saying by you. Let's say another cake which was ordered, which was in the form of a square, right? This was customer C. Now look at it. I'm making cakes, right? Now this can be a walnut cake. This is a hazelnut cake. This is a mud cake. Can you look at it? Can you look at it, Krishna? Now, I am a bakery, right? I make in batches the cupcakes, but as per the customer, I am making the cake, these half kg cakes or 1 kg cakes. Somebody wants a walnut cake, so I'm making a walnut cake, and he wanted it rectangle, so I made it rectangle. Somebody wanted a hazelnut cake in a heart shape, so I made a hazelnut cake in a heart shape. Somebody wanted a mud cake in square, I made up a mud cake. Now all these are, I am a bakery shop, right? But the job which I'm doing is different from the other. This is a walnut cake, this is a hazelnut cake, this is a mud cake, right? Now, how do I do costing? So let's say walnut cake. I would know the material, right? That what is the material being used. Let's say I require material worth 200 rupees. I require walnut. I require certain material would be common because I'm making cake, but there is something specific to walnut cake, and that is use of walnuts. So keeping into mind all the material I require, I say, okay, for walnut cake, for a half kg walnut cake, I require 200 rupees of material. It requires 1 hour to make a walnut cake, and I pay a laborer at the rate of rupees 100. So how much labor charges you will add? 100. Yes. Now overheads. Now overheads for my bakery are my rent, my people, my bakers which are there, my receptionist, the one who bills. So there's so many expenses which are happening inside the bakery, right? The electricity, the lighting, the workers. So I have added up all those costs, right? And you people have learned how to calculate overhead absorption rate. So I have calculated overhead absorption rate, OAR. I calculated my overhead absorption rate on the basis of labor hours because my organization is labor intensive. So I calculated my overhead recovery rate on the basis of labor hours, and I calculated it that the rate is 500 per hour, right? Okay, so if it requires 1 hour of labor and the rate is 500, so how much overhead I absorb? 500. So now what is the cost, total cost of this walnut cake? 600, 700, 800. Now I have a policy of charging 25% profit. Yes or no? So I added 25% profit on it. So I added 25% profit on it. 200. I used to add 25% on cost. This is my policy. So the cost becomes 1,000. Am I clear, Krishna? This is job cost, right? Okay. This is job cost. Material, labor, overheads. Okay. Now I clear it. My next cake was a heart-shaped cake, and it was which cake? I forgot. I don't know which cake it was. Hazelnut cake. Now half kg hazelnut cake. Now, the specific characteristic of a hazelnut cake would be the material which will be requiring hazelnuts. Let's say it is 300 rupees. I don't know the cost. I'm just doing it arbitrarily. Yeah? So don't get into, ma'am, hazelnut is cheaper than walnut. I'm being just abstract, right? So 300 rupees of hazelnut and material, egg and cream and whatever I'll be requiring. 300 rupees for a half kg cake. Now, let's say hazelnut cake can be done faster. It requires only half an hour. Right. So what was the labor cost I was paying there? I think I was paying 100 rupees. I was paying 100 rupees per hour. No? Here it requires only half an hour, so I will charge only 50. Overheads would be again, at what rate? There the rate was 500, but I will use only for half an hour. So it will be 250. So how much is it? How much is it? Same overhead rate I have used, but here it was half an hour, so I used only for half an hour. 600 rupees. Now I add 25% profit because that's my methodology that I always add 25% profit on cost. So 25% of 600 is going to be how much? It's going to be 150 if I'm not wrong. Still, I'll calculate. So 600 into 25% is 150. 750 is the selling price. Similarly, I can do for my mud cake. So I hope, Krishna, I have answered your question. You're clear? Thank you so much. Right. Such a costly cake, Vanshika, come down to Mumbai. I will treat you with costly cakes. Shivani, actually, this topic, yes, Institute would be interested in asking you theory, but actually this topic goes a long way. You know how? Because this topic actually develops your understanding towards costing. Because you'll be reading process costing, you'll be doing variety of sums, you'll be doing operational costing, operational is service costing. But by doing this, you will get an idea as to how you actually need to do costing if you're producing one unit at a time, or you're producing it in a batch, or you're producing it in a process. Just a second. So the whole, just a second. Yeah. Okay. So the whole concept of my phone is on its own plane mode, then how can the bell ring? Okay. Now, so this is what we call as job costing. I calculate, I absorb the overheads, and then as per the job I'm performing, I keep on adding the overhead cost. Okay, so thank you so much, Rahul. Right, Vishal. Okay, clear, wonderful. Vishal, what is it that you want to understand? Please let me know. Okay, Manish, wonderful. And Vanchika, yes, you should after becoming a chartered accountant. Okay. Now, I clear my drawings. So I think now time for me to share the text, or if anybody else has got any other question, you can ask me. Okay. Else I am sharing the ICAI material. Okay. Let me go down to the downloads. Okay. This is job costing. I want unit cost. Oh, see. I'm taking. Okay. So I share the screen with you guys. Just a second. Yeah. Okay. So this is your text ICAI material, which I'm sharing with you, right? All of you have the ICAI material, right? Okay. Any other question? To sum up the whole job costing procedure in 2 lines, that would be, to sum up the whole job costing procedure in 2 lines would be that each job is different. I need to find out the cost as per each job. I would know the material, I would know the labor cost. I just need to absorb the overheads as per the job which is being performed. That's it. So that's a summation of job costing. The basic thing about job costing is that it is what you can say, it is every job is different. It is not the same. So that is something which needs to be understood by all of you, right? Okay, so each one of you has a text material. I'm just sharing the text material so that you are able to understand. Please open up your text material. Institute says, what is unit costing? They say unit costing, the basic thing about unit costing is, I don't want you to look at the text. I don't want you to look at the text. I have opened up the text so that you are able to appreciate the fact that what is it that you need to understand, right? When you talk about unit costing, it is the product which is being produced is coming out of production one by one, and the products are identical, right? It is every time the product that comes into existence is identical. Let's say I'm producing a cup. Now, every time the cup which is coming into existence is the same identical cup, right? Let's say medicine. I'm manufacturing medicine. I'm having a medicine here in front of me. So every time, let's say it is not being produced in a batch, it is one tablet coming out into existence, but every tablet is similar to the tablet which is being produced. So but only why it is called as unit costing? Because the output is coming out one by one. So this is known as, this method of costing is followed by industries of a single output, right? So what do you do? So technically, what are you actually doing? You are just finding out the cost of production of all the of that particular product at one place, and then just dividing it by the number of units you have produced in order to get the cost of one unit. So you are absorbing all the expenses at one cost center where you are producing that particular product, and then in order to find out the per unit cost, you're just dividing it by per unit. Now, somebody had asked me earlier that in cost sheet, where do you show notional rent, right? Now, first of all, I have a question to the person who had asked me. Is there a place for notional rent as far as cost accountancy is concerned? Now, notional rent concept, whoever had asked me, I am not able to find out. Right? Notional rent concept will only come into existence if it is my own place and I am the owner of that place, and so I will not be charging any rent, right? But I hope we understand business and businessmen are two different people. So what do you call as notional? Maybe the actual rent outflow which will be moving from the business to the owner of the business. We can treat it as capital, but if it is the rental amount which is not actually being charged by the owner, but still, if you want to put it in the cost sheet, then in that situation, if it is a rent of the factory, it will go into the factory rent. If it is the rent of an office, it will go into the office rent. But my biggest question is, Will we charge? Are we going to charge notional rate? Right? Should we charge, because we are studying costing, right? For the purpose of taking up a decision, when we'll talk about for the purpose of taking up decision, I'm doing relevant costing, then I would actually look into the fact that at that particular time, this would not be relevant. If I'm talking in terms of opportunity cost, it will become relevant. So your question needs to be clear when you're asking me a particular question, right? ICAI has made the study material quite colorful with these green things there, right? Are there 4 methods of absorbing overheads, or only it is supplementary method? Jasmine, what is this question? I become upset. Jasmine, supplementary rate I calculate if I find that the overhead rate which I've calculated is not sufficient. And if I realize that the overheads are being under-absorbed and this is normal, so if due to normal reasons I find that the overhead rate which I've calculated is not correct, right, then I calculate a supplementary rate. And that's one question, right? Second thing is, Jasmine, I can calculate overhead on the basis of labor. If I'm a labor-intensive organization, I may calculate overheads on the basis of what you can say on the basis of machine. If I'm a machine-intensive organization, if I want to calculate overhead as I want to absorb overheads on the basis of prime cost, I can do that. If I want to absorb on the basis of labor cost, I can do that. So it depends upon which methodology of overhead absorption I'm following. Right, Jasmine? Okay. Okay, now, if there's anything specific you're asking from a topic which has been taught by somebody else, I think cost sheet is not taught by me. I would request, I find a lot of doubts coming up from cost sheet. It'll be good if you ask the respective faculty, because what will happen is I don't want any kind of misunderstanding, because every faculty has their methodology of teaching and using terms, right? So I think let us stick to unit output costing, right? Single output costing. Okay. So here they are talking about that what is the idea behind doing unit costing. They say every expenditure you need to collect, right? So whether it is material cost, whether it is a labor cost, whether it is the overheads, you need to collect all this cost. Guys, this is very important from examination point of view, spoiled and defective work. This comes in the examination for theory. Somebody was asking me, ma'am, what comes for theory in CA papers? This comes for theory in CA papers. You should know the difference between spoiled and defective work. When you say something is spoiled, that means it is beyond repair. Let me put it like this. It's like, what example do I give so that you people are able to associate faster? Okay, let's say you are making a paratha, right? A roti, paratha, whatever you want to call it, right? You're making a roti. Or let's say I have got students from south of India, so you're making a dosa, right? Now, when you put the dosa batter on your hot plate, and the things that batter does not spread, in fact, it comes together, can you make a dosa out of it? The answer is no. That's spoiled. You will not get a dosa out of it because the batter didn't spread out, right? That's spoiled. That is something which is beyond recovery. I would say it is spoiled. Now, when you say something which is damaged, right? The damage could be maybe after doing some kind of expenditure, or maybe after doing some kind of change. I may still think of rectifying it. So that's something very, very important. I've given you an MCQ test also, and I'm very interested that the student should know the difference between spoiled and defective work. They say that look at the illustration which is there. Look at the illustration which is there here, right? Now, okay. Like to zoom it. ये तो छोटा हो गया है. Minimize हो रहा है. Okay, so the following data relates to, so let me read it here. Let me read it here. When a normal rate of defective has already been established, an actual number of defectives within the normal limit, the cost of rectification and loss will be charged to entire output. Now, this is treatment of spoiled and defective. If, on the other hand, number of defective units substantially exceed the normal limit, the cost of rectification or loss beyond the limits are written off in costing here. Okay. Now, this they are talking about normal reasons and abnormal reasons. This they are talking about how do you treat spoiled or defective work. I was telling you what is the difference between spoiled and defective work, right? So when you say something is spoiled, I say it is beyond repair. When I say if it is defective, that means still, I may do some expenditure and maybe recover out of it. Now here ICAI is talking about that if things have gone bad, you need to look into the reasons. Is it a normal reason or is it an abnormal reason? They say if it is a normal reason, right, then you must have identified a limit. Now the limit is like, say, for example, if I say, I identified a limit that if 100 units of input are there, I put in that 5% would be defective or spoiled or whatever. Now this is a range. This is a range that till 5%, I am fine, right? Till 5%, I am fine. That means if 100 units you input, I always assume that 95 units will come into existence. That means 95 will be the output. Now, what does ICAI means? That this will be charged to the entire output. This is an acceptable limit. I accept that 5% of defectives will be there. So now let's say the cost of this defective items is, let's say, 100. I will divide this by 95 so that the cost gets spread over all these. Let me put it 1,000. So if the cost of those defectives, this is what they say. The cost of rectification of loss will be charged to the entire output. Now, entire output does not mean 100. It means 95 because it is within the acceptable limit, right? That means 5 defectives which came out in order to improve it, right? Now, here I'm using the word defectives, right? Right. Now I'm saying if it is spoiled, I did the expenditure, still nothing came out into existence. I still have 95 units of output. My output is still 95 and I spent 1,000 rupees. Now those 5 units have not, even after trying to do some expenditure, have not come into existence. What do? I divide this 1,000 rupees on this 95. Okay. But let's say after doing this 1,000 rupees of expenditure, those 5 units become good. I'll divide this by 100. Why? Because this was accepted. This 5 units of defect, I accepted that, okay, this much of defect, I accept. So this will be shared by all the units. But if, say, the defect was, instead of 5 units of defect, the defect was 7 units. Let's say defects were not 5 units, but they were 7 units. Now here they say, if it is exceeding your normal limit, that means the defectives are not 5. I accepted that if I put in 100, 5 can be defective. I did a rectification expenditure, still it could not be rectified. Then in that situation, I was anyways expecting it. The cost of the good units increases. Yes, that's a normal thing which we do. This we have been teaching from the time you people were in CA Foundation. Now here ICAI is saying something else. They say you do a rectification expenditure, and that after doing that rectification, the things are fine, right? Then that rectification expense will be charged over all the good units which are being produced, right? But if the expenditure if the defectives are more than the normal limit, they say, then I will not absorb it on all the units. Look at it. What do they say there? The cost of the rectification beyond the normal is put up into the costing P&L account. This is what ICAI is really interested in, right? Okay. And if it is due to abnormal reasons, if this rectification is abnormal, then obviously we never allocate it to the cost of the goods. We always put it into costing P&L. Now, this aspect is very important. This treatment of spoiled and defective. First is you should understand spoiled and defective. Spoiled means beyond repair. Defective means, yes, after doing some expenditure, I can recover the original units. Then can I charge the expenditure which I do to correct the rectification, the defective units? You can, if it was within the normal reasons acceptable, you can charge it off to the units, but if not, directly put it into costing P&L. This is very important. Usually students don't even pay a heed to it. Very important. Somebody said theory, yes, but this theory is very important. It can be of 2 marks, MCQ, very important. Look at it. Following data relates to manufacture of a standard product. Raw material consumed is so and so. Wages is 2,40,000. You have worked for 3,200 hours. Machine hour rate is 40. These are the office overheads. These are selling overheads. Now, Jasmine, look at it. Look at it. Machine hours worked. Machine hour rate is 40. Office overheads are being absorbed at what rate? Look at it. They are being absorbed on the basis of factory costs. Works cost is nothing but the other name for factory cost. So you can have a methodology to absorb overheads on the basis of machine hours, on the basis of labor hours, on the basis of prime cost, or as a percentage of direct wages. You may decide what is it that you want to. Supplementary rate, I repeat, I use if the method which I have adopted and we realize that the overheads are being under-absorbed and the reason for being under-absorbed are normal. It was a miscalculation which was being done for us. The overhead rate which I've calculated is not correct. I need to change it. So I calculate a supplementary rate. I hope I'm very clear, Jasmine. Okay. Now, you are required to find out the cost per unit and the profit for a 4-week ended 28th February 2020. Look at it. How simple the sum is. You are producing 10,000 units, right? What is the raw material consumed? 4 lakh. How many units are there? 10,000 units, right? Okay. So 4 lakh divided by 10,000 will give you how much? 40. So that's what they're writing. Raw material consumed 4 lakh. Per unit, if I want to find out, 4 lakh divided by 10,000, 40. Similarly, look at it. Direct wages 2,40,000. 2,40,000. Yes. You divided it on the basis of per unit. So 2,40,000 divided by 10,000, 24. This is your prime cost, 64. Any problem? Manufacturing overheads. They said we work for 3,200 hours. Machine hour rate means the way we are going to absorb the factory overheads is on the basis of machine hours. So you work for 3,200 hours. The rate is given to you, 40 rupees. You charged 1,28,000. Now this is as per the number of machines worked on 10,000 units. So per unit cost is how much? 1,28,000 divided by 10,000. I hope I'm clear. For manufacturing 10,000 units, I have put in 3,200 hours. What was my overhead rate? 40. So what is the overheads that has been absorbed? 3,200 into 40. I hope I'm clear. This is your works cost, 7,68,000. Now here I was very clear. I will absorb office overheads on the basis of 10% of works cost. So what did I do? Works cost 768. I absorbed overheads at the rate of 76,800. Per unit, it will become how much? Divided by 10,000, 7.68. This is my cost of goods sold. Selling overhead is given to me 20 rupees per unit. I charge 20 rupees per unit. I get out with my cost of sales. Selling price has been given to me 120, 15.5. Now this particular sum had nothing to do with your defectives and spoiled. But this is very, very important that you should know that how do you treat spoiled and defective units. Till here, any problem? Yes, Rahul, Charu, in case of normal reason, defect is within limit, then we need to divide by, Charu, I gave you two things, Charu. I gave you two things, right? I said, if it is...
For that, you'll have to turn off airplane mode.
If you have to, Charu, if you have to, there was a defect and you realized that you incurred certain expenditure, but still the defects could not be improved. Now those goods are they cannot be improvised. You can't do anything about it. What do you do, Charu? Now there, the defective cost, you'll charge off on those 95 units, right? Because that's within your normal units, within your acceptable. But say, Charu, those you incurred an expenditure of 1,000 rupees to rectify those 5 defective units. Those defective units were rectified, and I can sell it as a good unit. Now here, that 1,000 rupees, I should divide it over all 100 units, because now those 5 units which were defective have improvised, they're fine. So you can divide it over all the units. Yes? So am I clear, Charu? Thank you so much, Rahul. I feel so happy. Yes, Shivani, manufacturing overheads is nothing but factory overhead. So I hope everybody is very clear. It's very, very, very simple, right? Now, illustration 2. A Atharv Pharmacare produces a uniform type of product and has a manufacturing capacity of 3,000 units per week of 48 hours. From the records of the company, the following data is available relating to output and cost of 3 consecutive weeks. So they have given us certain details, a very easy sum, look at it. We have manufactured 1,200 units, they've given you the material, they've given you the wages, and they've given you the factory. Now look at it. Company charges how much of profit? 20%, right? Now they are saying, please find out the cost for 2,000 units, right? Now, guys, material cost, I know material should be variable, yes or no? So if I'm using, now here your basics will come into existence. Let us try to do it. Okay, let us try to do it. Okay, 9,000 is the material cost divided by 1,200. Let us see how much does it come out to be. 9,000 divided by 1,200, 7.5. Let us check, does the material cost remain the same? If you produce 1,600 units and the material cost is 7.5, then it should come out to be 12,000. Let us check it out. 1,600 units into 7.5. Yes, it does come out to be 12,000. 1,800 units into 7.5. It should come out to be 1,800 into 7.5, 13,500. So your first work is to identify which expenditure is variable, which expenditure is not variable. So we checked out that material is variable, yes or no? And what is the rate per unit? It is 7.5. Can we check out for wages? Okay, let us check it out for wages. Now 3,600 divided by 1,200. 3,600 divided by 1,200. It is 3, right? The rate happens to be 3 per unit. Let us check it out. Is it variable? 3 into 1,600, yes, 4,800. 3 into 1,800, 5,400. So this expenditure and this expenditure both are variable. 7.5 per unit is material and 3 per unit is wages. Now let us check it out. Whether factory overheads is variable. I don't think so. Because if it was variable, I'm rubbing my screen. If it was variable, 31,000 is the expenditure if you produce 1,200. So let us see what rate do I get. 31,000 divided by 1,200. It comes out to be 25.833. If it is variable, then if I produce 1600 units, it should be how much? 25.833. Check it out. How much does it come out to be? 25.833 into 1600. It comes out to be some 41,332. No, it's not. So no. So first thing, we need to be very clear that this expenditure is semi-variable. This expenditure is semi-variable. So I need to bifurcate the variable part from the fixed part. How can we do it? Okay. If I take up 1200 units, your expenditure happens to be 31,000. If you manufacture 1800 units, highest and lowest point, if I take up 1800 units, you manufacture, your expenditure is 34,000, right? So what is the difference? 300 units. What is the difference in expenditure? Difference in expenditure is 3,000. So the variable cost should be how much? 3,000 divided by 300. That means 10 rupees. Should I start speaking, Aizaji? Hello? Can everybody see me? Yes, Shivani, I was told my video is stuck. Can you people see me now so that I can repeat doing this question, please? Can everybody see me? Video is buffering, audio is stuck. What do I do? Fine? Okay. I have been told that everything is fine, but I can't see myself, Ajazji. Please, can you see to it that my video becomes visible, please? No, but I can't see my own self. Okay. No, I am not visible, Azazji. I'm not visible. Mine is fine. Mine is fine. I can only see ICAI BOS. Okay, no worries. Even guys, can you see my face? If yes, great enough. Otherwise, nothing to worry. Right. So I go here. Okay. No. Okay. So guys, I am now video is fine. Okay. Shivani ma'am, whenever we incur to make defective goods will be spread over all units. That is 1,000 on 100 in our case, and the amount of defectives is is 2,000 units. You need to understand material, wages, overheads. Now, material and wages, I calculated for you 9,000. Divided by 1,200 is 7.5. So the material cost is 7.5 per unit. Similarly, labor cost is 3,600 divided by 1,200 is 3 per unit. And if you'll actually check it out, you'll find 9,000, this 7.5 into 1,600 will give you 12,000. 1,800 into 7.5 will give you 13,500. So both these expenditures are variable. But the problem is of factory overhead. Factory overhead, 31,000 is for 1,200, right? If you'll actually find it out, you'll see that they are not variable. 31,000 divided by 1,200 gives you some 25.833. And if you multiply this with 1600, it will come out to be some 41,000. So you will realize that factory overhead is not variable. In fact, it is semi-variable, because if it was fixed, then whether I produce 1200, whether I produce 1600, whether I produce 1800, the cost will remain stagnant. It will remain 25,000. It will remain 31,000. But you can see the cost is changing. It is increasing. But it is not increasing in the same proportion, right, as the units being produced. That means some portion here is fixed and some portion is variable. So how do I find this out? I go by high and low method. High and low method is for 1200, expenditure is 13,000. For 1800 units, the expenditure is 34,000. So difference in units is 600. Difference in expenditure is 3,000. So variable cost per unit will be how much? 3,000 divided by 600, which is ₹5. Yes? Now, once I know that the variable cost is ₹5, we can find out how much is fixed and how much is variable. Let us do that. So when there are 1200 units into 5, total variable cost is 6,000. Total cost is 31,000. So total fixed cost will be 31,000 minus 6,000 is 25,000. You want to check your answer? For 1600 units, your variable cost is 8,000. When you add the fixed cost to it, 25,000, you get out with 33,000. Am I clear? Once we have understood how to divide it, guys, the sum is easy. I can do it for 2,000 units. For 2,000 units per unit, material cost is ₹7.50. Labor cost is ₹3. So your prime cost is ₹10.50. Now the question is, how do I absorb overheads? Overhead absorption, what could be the methodology? My variable cost was ₹5, right? My fixed cost, we know, is 25,000. What do I do? How do I absorb it? What could be the method? Right? 25,000, if I divide it by 2,000 units, it's going to come out to be ₹25. It's going to be very expensive. So what is this overhead recovery rate which they've calculated? Look at it. What they have done. What they have done. All this is fine. Now, what is it that, how have they tried to absorb it? How they have tried to absorb it? So for 2,000 units, they say 10,000 is going to be a variable cost. Fixed cost will not change. It is going to remain 25,000. So the total overheads for 2,000 units is going to be how much? 35,000. 25,000 fixed and variable is going to be 2,000 into 5, 10,000. 35,000 rupees is the cost if I manufacture 2,000 units. That means what will be the cost per unit? It will be 35,000 divided by 2,000. And that's how they got out with this ₹17.50. With this, you get out with your total cost. They were very clear. We want to charge profit of 20% on selling price. This, guys, mathematically, if you do not know, I will try to explain it to you. If it is profit on selling price, then as per unitary method of costing, which we have done it in, grade 7th, if the profit percentage is on selling price, assume selling price to be 100. If profit happens to be 20%, that means 20% of 100 is going to be 20. So cost is going to be 80. So what will be the profit percentage on cost? It will be 20 divided by 80 into 100, which will come out to be 25%. Yes or no? This is something basic which we have taught you at CA foundation level, and this you need to be very particular that you are calculating on sale price or you're doing it on cost price. They have given you a profit percentage on selling price, but what you have here is the cost. So you need to convert 20% if it is on sales, and how much will it be on cost? Do it and you'll get the selling price. I hope I'm good. Right? So are we very clear with this question? Abhishek, are you very clear? How did we get with 17 rupees 50 paisa? We calculated that the fixed cost is 25,000 rupees. So you manufacture 1,000 units, you manufacture 50,000 units, you manufacture whatever units, fixed cost is going to be remaining to be 25,000, right? That we calculated. Now they decided to manufacture only 2,000 units. It's going to be very high, but we can't help it. Fixed cost is 25,000. Variable cost was 5 rupees per unit. So 2,000 into 5, 10,000 is the variable cost, 25,000 is the fixed cost. So the total cost, Abhishek, if I manufacture 2,000 units, is going to be, overheads is going to be 35,000. 35,000 divided by 2,000 units gives you 17 rupees 50 paisa. Okay. Crystal clear? Thank you so much. Right. Manish, can per unit variable cost change? Suppose first we were comparing 1,600 and 1,200, and second we were comparing 1,800 and 1,600. How can variable cost change? Manish, try doing it. It will remain the same. You want to check it out? I'll do it for you. You want to do it? I will not do, I will not do 1,200 and 1,800. Let us say 1,200, your expenditure was 31,000. And 1,600 units, it is 33,000. So difference in units is 400. Difference in expenditure is 2,000. So per unit variable cost is how much? 2,000 divided by 400. 5 per unit. Manish, it cannot change. Okay. If variable cost will change, then everything will change. Yes, we may have a stepped fixed cost. That we'll have to be very aware. Yes. Okay. Right. Soumya, what is it that you want me to explain? I'll explain it to you. Right. So this is it. And now, guys, batch costing. But before we talk about batch costing, I would now like to take a break of like 5 minutes. So we resume at 7:20. Yes. SSG, I'm taking up a break of 5 to 7 minutes. Yeah. As you can, yeah, we are live. Okay. So I looked into the question which Soumya has asked me. Soumya, please read the question, please. Atharva Pharmaceutical produces a uniform type of product and has a manufacturing capacity of 3,000 units per week or 48 hours. From the records, this is the data which they have given, that they are manufacturing how many units per week. They have a capacity to manufacture 300,000 units per week, but sometimes they are manufacturing 1,200, sometimes they are manufacturing 1,600, sometimes they are manufacturing 1,800, right? Now, you've asked me question, ma'am, how will I calculate selling price when per unit, when 2,000 units, but in question total units manufactured is 40. What is, how does it matter to you? Total units. It is like every week, this is the expenditure. They have given you information per week. And so the fourth week, it's a 3 consecutive weeks, they have given you this information. The fourth week, or they have calculated 2,000 units. So they're just wanting you to that. How do you calculate for week? Right? 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 Rahul, ma'am, please resume. We are seeing your path. I'm not understanding what you mean to say, but thank you so much if you're trying to follow me. Okay, so I think, Soumya, am I clear? This is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3. This is some information. And then they say, we are now calculating 2,000 units, or we have calculated for 2,000. We've calculated this week 2,000 units, and they want us to calculate. Yes or no? I hope I'm clear. So for me, it is very important that I need to find out that if there are 2,000 units being produced, then how do I do the costing? So I could make out material is variable, wages is variable, but overheads wasn't only variable. So I bifurcated what is fixed, what is variable. Once I did that, what did I do? Factory overheads, I said, okay, even if I produce 2,000 units, still the fixed overheads for that week will still remain 25,000 rupees. As you can see, it is mentioned, we calculated, so it will remain 25,000. But what will be the variable overheads? Variable overheads will be 2,000 into 5, so which will come out to be 35,000. This 35,000 you divide it by 2,000, it gets you 17.5. Now, once you know your cost, you added the profit and you found out the selling price. Yes? Okay. Now, guys, let's talk about batch cost. So basically, unit output costing, if you'll actually see, what are the takeaways? 3 takeaways from my session from unit output costing. What is it that a student should know, right, if he's doing single output costing? So if I am a student, I would be interested how to treat defective and spoiled. This is important because this can come as a theory. This is the first thing you should understand. Second thing is, if you need to cost, then you need to understand the difference between variable and fixed. So if there is a semi-variable item given, we should learn how to divide so that we can do the costing. Third is, when I say single output costing, the most important thing the institute wants you to understand is that goods are homogeneous or identical. You are just accumulating or putting all the cost at one place and then dividing it by number of units in order to get out with the cost per unit. Now, this is single output costing. And if we are talking about batch costing now, only thing would be the goods are not being produced one, but they are being produced in a batch. That's it. So they talk about batch costing, right? Now look at it. I would like to read one line of batch costing. I really like it. Reasons why I want to do batch manufacturing. One is it could be technical or economical. Let's say I gave you the example that I'm making cupcake. Now, instead of making one cupcake, if my tray can have 10 cupcakes together, it makes it more economical that I make 10 pieces of cupcakes together, right? If I'm in a pen industry and I have to Instead of making one pen, I can make pens in batches. I gave you the example, cold drink. I have to manufacture cold drink bottles. I can make them in batch of 20 or 30 or 40, depending on batch size. Right? So the question here would be in a batch would be, so we understand why batch costing. Why batch costing? Because it is technically or economically good. Reasons for manufacturing in a batch is that it is technically or economically good. This line, please note it down. But now brings in another question. What is the optimum batch size? What should be the optimum batch size in which I should produce so that the setup cost and the carrying cost of my good is, optimum. Now, I don't need to explain you the concept of, I should not explain you the concept of economic order quantity. You have already understood this concept of economic order quantity when you have studied material costing. All of us should understand, I share the white screen with you, all of us should understand that with inventory, there are, besides the purchase cost, there are two costs associated. One is the ordering cost, and the second is the carrying cost. Yes, this was with respect to material costing. You understood this concept. And both these costs were opposite to each other. Yes or no? They were opposite to each other. Why? Because if you order larger quantity, ordering cost will be less, but carrying cost will be more. If you order small quantity, if your order size is small, then you place more orders. So your ordering cost is high, but your carrying cost is low. Now these costs are opposite to each other. You have already understood this concept. So we worked out on something called as EOQ, which mathematically gave us that if we will buy material in this lot size or in this quantity, my ordering and carrying cost will be equal. They will become equal at EOQ. And when two opposite costs are equal, the inventory cost becomes the lowest. Now that same concept can be applied when we are manufacturing in a batch, because I have to identify what is the optimum batch size. How do I identify that I manufacture 50 units in a batch or 100 units in a batch? Because I understand we should do manufacture in batch because of technical and economical benefits. Yes or no? But what should be the batch size? Because every time I need to set up a machine, and then whatever units I produce, I need to carry them. So these costs are opposite again to each other. If I decide to produce a larger batch size, if I decide to produce a larger batch size, my setup cost will be low, but my carrying cost will be high. But if I decide to produce a smaller batch size, yes, my setup cost will be high because I'll have to keep on setting up the machine again and again. But my carrying cost will be low. These are two opposite costs. So if I manufacture in the economic batch quantity, that means both these costs, if they become equal, I will be able to optimize my batch. Yes, sir. So the reason why we need to decide what should be the optimum batch size, because there are two costs involved. One is setting up the machines, and the second is how much units I produce in a batch, and those units I need to carry. Obviously, they are opposite to each other. Yeah? Okay. Once I've understood this concept, let's go back to the study text. Same thing which you have done it in material. This is what they're saying. So Arnav Confectioneries owns a bakery which is used to make bakery items like pastries, cakes, muffins. It used to bake at most 50 units at any time. Customer has given an order for 600 muffins. Now, if 600 muffins are there and you're producing 50 units every time, so how many number of times you need to manufacture? 600 divided by 50. Yes or no? 12. Now, to process a batch of 50 muffins, so much of expenditure is there. Material is there, labor is there, and setup. Our setup cost is there. That means every time I bake, this material and wages will vary with the muffins which I'm manufacturing, but the importance is of that setup cost. Yes or no? So, guys, if I am just giving you an example that if I produce in 50 units, number of batches will be how much? Number of batches will be 600 divided by 50, which is 12. So your setup cost will be how much? 12 into 150, yes or no? Yes, 12 into 150. But if I produce, let's say, 10 units, then for producing 600 units, I'll have to do 60 times I'll have to set up the machine. So what will be my setup cost? My setup cost is going to be 60 into 150. This is going to be high. This is what ICAI is trying to explain it to you. Let us see what the question says. AC absorbs overheads at the rate of 20% of direct wages. 10% is added to the production cost for each batch to allow for selling, distribution, and admin overheads. They want a profit margin of 25%. They want us to calculate the selling price for 600 muffins. Can we do it? Yeah, we can do it. Yes, can we do it? A batch of 50 muffins, material is 500. That means for 600 muffins, what will be the material cost? 500 into, this is for 50, yes or no? This for 50. This 500 is for 50 muffins, yes or no? That means 10 rupees of material cost for each muffin. So if I have to manufacture 600 muffins, it will be how much? 500 divided by 50 into 600, yes or no? It's going to be how much? 6,000. Yes. Similarly, I can do it for wages. If you are 50 for 50, then how much for 600? So this is going to be, our setup cost will be how much? 12 times I need to set up into 150. Figure out the cost. So 12 into 150 is how much? 12 into 150 is how much? 1,800. So what is my total cost? It is 6,000 plus 600 plus 1,800, 8,400. Now they have asked that on this, you are going to absorb manufacturing overheads. How much? 20% of direct wages. That means 600 ka 20%. Yes, whatever the figure comes, I get it. Then on that, I need to add 25% profit is on sale value. Again, I will do it. If it is 25% on sale value, it will be 33.33% on cost. You can do it. How? Selling price is 100. Profit is 25%. So this is 25. So cost is going to be 75. So profit percentage will be 25 divided by 75 into 100. If you will calculate, this will be 33.33. You can just add it and get the cost. So this chapter is your basic, guys. This is your basic. Anyways, let's check it out. ICAI has done it for you. Yes. Similarly, there is illustration 4. They have given you some information. Now they have told you about machine economic batch quantity, which I just explained it to you. This diagram, you've already seen it at the time when you did inventory. Instead of ordering, there is setup cost. The point at which both of them meet, which is the point at which they're equal, is the economic batch quantity. Formula remains the same. Instead of E, economic order quantity is equal to 2AO divided by C. Here it becomes D, which will be nothing but the number of what you can say demand which is there for the product, and S will be the setting cost for your per batch, right? So the question here is monthly demand is 1200. We always take up annual demand. Yes. So it is going to be 500 into 12. So this is your annual demand. Same formula. Can you see that? You've already done it in material costing. So 2 into 6,000 into what is the setup cost? 60 rupees divided by your holding cost. Yes, same formula, right? Okay, yes, Sahil, you're right. What is the necessity of batch costing? Necessity of batch costing, Sushil, is because if it is an identical product, why do I need to produce one unit? I can produce it in a batch, right? So this is it, right? So now the concept is saved in your mind, Rahul. Thank you so much. Right. Example for a setup cost. Okay. Manish, have you ever gone to have a grilled sandwich? Manish, have you ever gone and eaten a grilled sandwich? Right. You go down and you'll see that when you go in for a grilled sandwich, you need to heat up that oven, and then let's say it's a big griller, you can grill 4 sandwiches at one time. So the gentleman, 4 people come in, so 4 is his capacity, he grills 4 sandwiches, right? But then there is no order for next 1 hour. Again, after an hour, 3 more people come in. Again, he'll have to set up. Again, the machine has to get heated up, and then he can do it. So setup time is simple, that every time you need to do the production, you need to set up the things. It can be like machine ko heat up karna padta hai, yeah, whatever. Not everything can be done right away. Like a simple example, I have to take up your lecture. Your lecture starts at 6 o'clock, but you can ask the gentleman who is there. I always log in at 5:45. We test that everything is fine, and we look into the screen. So we log in 15 minutes before. Yes or no? Now, if the gentleman who is there with me, who's assisting me, if he charges, let us say 100 rupees per hour, then that setup time would be, he will also be charging for that 15 minutes, no? That is a setup cost. The lecture is from 6 to 8, right? But that 15 minutes, that setup time. So every time you set up a lecture, every time you start up a lecture, you need to set up those things. So there's a cost involved. Yes. And here I've only talked about the salary. The setup requires everything from, seeing everything is fine on YouTube, and all the things need to be put at place. So that's the setup cost. So I think, Manish, I've given you a very, very live and practical example. Yes. Right? Okay. Okay, I go back and let us do this particular sum. KBC bearing is committed to supply 48,000 bearings to Messrs on a steady basis. It is estimated that 1 rupees is going to be the inventory holding cost. Setup cost is going to be 3,200. What should be the optimum run size? I think we can just put it on the formula. 2 into what will be the optimum run size, or you can say the optimum batch size. It will be 2. What is your annual requirement? 48,000. What is your setup cost? 3,200. What is your inventory carrying cost? 1 rupee. Calculate, you will get up with your optimum batch. Yes or no? Okay, so or you need to run your machine. And if there are 365 days in a year, that means between 2 runs, how many days are there? 36.5 is the interval which is between the 2 runs. Okay. Similarly, you can do the sum. A company has an annual demand from a single customer for 50,000 liters of painting. The total demand can be made up of a range of colors to be produced in continuous production range, after which a setup of machine will be required to accommodate the color change. The total output for each color will be stored and then delivered to the customer as single load immediately before production of the next color commences. Setup cost is 100 rupees per setup. Now look at it. They are very clearly defining that the total demand can be made up of range of colors, but every time I change a color, I need to set up. See? So example again, Manish, right? The service is supplied by an outside company. Holding cost, they have told you. You have to rent a place, which will cost 50 rupees per square meter per annum. Each square meter can hold 250 liters suitably stacked, right? So can you find out the cost? If it is 50 rupees per square meter per annum, that means per liter the cost will be 50 divided by 250, because that each square meter can hold 250. So you can get the cost per liter. Yes, right? So if I have to calculate the EBQ, what will be the EBQ? EBQ would be 2 into 50,000 into 100 divided by, what was this? 50 divided by 250. What is the cost? ICAI has done it for us. Right. EBQ, they have done it for us. So setting up cost is 100. 50 divided by 250 is 0.2. They have calculated that the EBQ is 7,071 liters. You should actually, economic batch size should be 7,071 liters, right? Now, let's look at the question. I would always calculate the EBQ, whatever said. Now, they have said calculate the total cost per year when the batch may range from 4,000 to 10,000 liters in multiples of 1,000 liters, and hence choose a production batch size which will minimize the cost. Now, here, ICAI wants you to do some real work. This says if the batch size ranges from 4,000 to 10,000 liters, so in 1,000 multiples, you do the calculations. So they say if the batch size happens to be 4,000, how many times you need to do the setup? Setup cost is 100 per setup, right? So what will be the cost? What will be the cost? Setup cost is going to be how much? Each time you set up, the cost is 100, right? If batch size happens to be 4,000, how have they derived this setup cost? How have they derived at 1250? 50,000. 50,000 is your total demand. And if you do 4,000, I'll write it down. Then you can do it. So for this, I'm just doing it for here. 50,000 is your annual requirement. If you manufacture 4,000 in a batch, how many times you need to set up? 12.5. And how much do you spend every time? It is 12.5 into 100. That's how you got out with this 1250. Holding cost, we calculated, it was 0.2, I think, right? 50 divided by 250, 0.2. How did we get it? 50 divided by 250. It is given. So 0.2 into 4,000. How much do you get out with? Holding cost per annum. Have I done it correctly? Have I done it correctly? Should be 0.2 into holding costs per annum. How did you get this out? How did you get this out? Holding costs per annum. Holding costs per annum. It is, if you're manufacturing 4,000 units, friends, you always remember half of it. So it is how much? 2,000 into 0.2 is how much? 2,000 into 0.2, 400. Yes? Same concept which you have done it in material cost. So this is the same thing, 0.2 into 4,000. No, we need to divide it by 2 because we assume that whatever you produce, we carry half of it. The concept of EOQ, EBQ is based on this. So I think everybody can now calculate these figures. Yes or no? So for 5,000, number of batches would be how much? 50,000 divided by 5,000, 10. So number of setups will be 10 into 100,000. Similarly, you can do that. So it is lowest at which point? 141, that means 7,000. Look at it. Even if you do your EBQ was coming out to be 7,000. Yes, since we can't do, in fractions, if you can put only 1,000, so basically 7.14 is not possible. It's going to be 8 setups is what you need to do. I hope I'm clear. This is the same thing which you have done it. Yes? Yes, we need to divide it by 2. Right, Charu? This is material costing. This is it. Now, difference between job and batch. I don't need to talk about it, guys. Some questions ICAI has asked you theoretical. Now, guys, give me some more time and I would like to discuss job costing, which I think is in the next module. Let me go into downloads. Okay. Yeah. Job costing. Yes. Yes, job costing. We've already explained the concept of job costing. The most important thing of job costing is the category of basic costing method which is applicable where the work consists of separate contracts, jobs, batches. Each is different. So the principles of job costing is that we need to understand that each job is different. Is it visible now? I repeat, if it was not visible, I am using the ICAI material. As I told you, the basic difference or basic concept when we talk about job costing is that in job costing, every job is different. It is one job is different from the other job. I gave you the example of cake, right? Somebody's ordering a hazelnut cake, somebody's ordering a mud cake, somebody's ordering a walnut cake or whatever cake, right? So you need to January 21 question number. Charu, where this question is there? Jan 21, I'm not able to understand. If you can actually send the question, then maybe ICAI can send the question to me, because with this, I really can't understand from where are you saying, right? Charu, you didn't understand. Why did you divide by half? Charu, what did you study in material costing? What did you study in material costing, bacha? What was the logic in material costing? The same thing applies here. EOQ. What is it that you studied there? What was the logic, Charu? That this formula is derived on the concept that whatever is your order size or the lot size, I will always carry half of it. And the logic behind this thing, Charu, was think practically. I'm giving you a very simple live example. Charu, imagine your own house, okay, where your mom, gets stuff and she places it for a month, right? Now, in our own houses, the things are so easily available. But let's say you are staying in a remote place and where there is a lead time involved. There's a lead time involved. That is when you order, you don't get the goods immediately. So you need to order more, right? Okay. So please try to understand. I'm just telling you a concept. Let's say when you order, let us say 10 units, right? And every day, you consume 1 unit, right? And say it takes 5 days for the order to reach you, right? Charu, just imagine, it takes 5 days for the order to reach you. That means after how many days you'll again place the order? After 5 days, you'll again place the order. You know why? Because by the time 5 days have elapsed, you have already used 5 units. Now, if you do not order on the 5th day, and if you order on after the units are over, you'll be out of stock. Material costing, you have learned all that, right? So I don't want to be out of stock, right? Besides that, so whatever quantity we order, in real life, it may be happening that 60%, by the time 60% of my goods are over, I place an order. But for the purpose of this particular formula, we assume, am I clear, Charu? We assume that by whatever lot size is there, 50% of it is consumed, and then I need to replace the order. I need to replenish my goods. And that's why we don't say that if I order 10,000 units, I incur carrying cost on all those 10,000 units, because 50% of it goes into production. By the time 50% of the goods are there in my stock, I again reorder. So by the time these goods are used, then again I order. So almost throughout the year, I'm only carrying 50% of the goods. And that same concept, Charu, I'm applying it here in batch costing. Right? Charu, I'm not teaching you material costing. This concept should be clear to you when you read your material costing. Apply that thing in batch costing. Right. Hi, Sujata. Right. Ma'am, what is the difference between jobs, whether it is material or the final product? Rahul, it is the final product. I gave you the example that I'm buying hazelnut cake, I'm buying a walnut cake, I'm buying a mud cake, I'm buying. Rahul, the final job is different. I gave you another example. I needed to change the seat of my cycle, and my friend had to change something else. So ultimately, the job which is being performed is different. It is different from person to person. You may be using a similar material, like for example, I'm making cake. I would be requiring eggs and creams and sugar for making all kinds of cake. But the material is differing on the basis of the cake which I'm manufacturing. So material may or may not differ, but it can differ in quantity. It can differ. Some material can differ. The time may differ, because the ultimate output is specific to the customer, right? If customer has ordered X product, then I'm doing X job. If the customer has ordered Y product, then I am doing Y job. And it's all being done in my factory. Yes, so job cost sheet. I think I've answered your question, right, Rahul? Right. So look at the way cost sheet appears out to be. Which job I'm doing. I'm manufacturing. I make bundi ka laddus. I make laddus. This is Ganpati time. But I'm making chocolate laddus. I'm making mawa laddus. I'm making 1 kg laddu for Rahul, but I'm making 4 kgs laddus for Charu, or I'm making 10 kgs laddu for Shushi. Now each job is different. Somebody is ordering for an anjir laddu. Somebody is ordering for a cashew laddu. Somebody is ordering for whatever. I feel like eating them. Okay. So how much product is being, how much material is going, how much work wages is going, what is the overhead? That's how the job cost sheet will appear out, because each job we need to tell that how much of material, how much of labor has gone into the manufacturing of that particular job, right? So it's specific to that particular job which is being performed, right? Again, treatment of spoiled and defective work. Spoiled work, now here they are saying spoiled work is the quantity of production that's totally rejected, cannot be rectified. And defective work is which is not perfect, but we need to rectify it. Again, treatment remains the same, right? We already discussed it, right? Same. Now this accounting of job for a cost of a job, this you will study when you will be studying accounting, ledger accounts you'll be studying, but still I will be teaching you a little bit what is mentioned here. That how do you account for a job, right? But for that, I would be teaching you something which you will be soon studying from a different faculty. That is known as that how are we actually accounting? How are we actually accounting in costing? Because cost accountancy does not account, but still we need to maintain records, no? So we can maintain records in costing on integrated basis, or we can do it in non-integrated basis. You will study this in detail. Please do not ask me doubts. You will study this in detail when you'll be studying this topic from the faculty. In non-integrated, cost and finance items are separate. And in integrated, cost and finance items are together. So in non-integrated, for any finance item, I prefer to use the word general ledger adjustment account, or you can say cost ledger control account. I like to use the word general ledger control account or cost ledger control account or nominal ledger control account. I can use any word. Non-integrated means costing entries are kept separate and finance items are kept separate, right? So that's known as non-integrated. Now, when I'm doing accounting and it is non-integrated, then for any finance item, for example, I buy material. If I buy material, and that too material I bought for cash. So what will be the accounting? Material debit, cash credit, yes or no? Let's say I bought material of 1,000 rupees. Yes. Now this entry, material account debit, cash account credit, you use it when you're doing accounts. But how do we do it in costing? How do we do it in costing? If it is integrated, I will write material control account. I just add one word control, material control account debit, and I can use the word cash, cash credit 1,000. But if I'm using non-integrated, I will have to say material control account debit, and I'm not allowed to use cash because it's a finance item. It's non-integrated accounting I'm using. So I will use the word, let's just say I like the word CLC. So I will use the word cost, ledger, control account, credit. That's it. This is the only difference which is there. I'm not allowed to use any finance term. Instead of a finance term, I will use the word cost ledger control account or general ledger control account or nominal ledger control. Right? So say for example, material is returned. Now material is returned. Now let us say I'm taking up the example. It is returned to stores or it is transferred to another job. Yes. Or it is returned to the supplier. Any of this thing can happen. Now I am doing only, I'm non-integrated accounting. I'm doing non-integrated accounting, right? So if I'm doing non-integrated accounting, what will I do? Material is returned and I'm returning it to the supplier. Now supplier, I can't use the word trade payables. So what will I do? I'm using the word cost ledger control account debit to material control. This is if I have returned to the supplier. If I return it to the stores, I return it back to the stores, then what do? It must be on some job, right? It must be on some job. From that job, I've returned it back to the stores. So material control account debit and WIP control account, or you can say job, from job one, right, to from job one, material goes back to the store. So in the store, material control account debit, because material has come back to the stores. So you can say store control account debit or material control account debit. And from where did it go away? From the job one or WIP, whatever you want. If it has been transferred to another job, let's say to job 2. So you can say job 2 debit, job 1 credit. So material control account of job 2. So material control account job 2 debit, material control account job 1 credit. Am I clear? So once you are clear with this, I go back to the text.
For that, you'll have to turn off airplane mode.
Right? So look at it. When you buy the raw material, and this is non-integrated accounting they've done. So it is material. Instead of material, they're using the word store. You can use material also. So you can say material control account debit. They have used the word store ledger control account debit. To cash or credit, I can't use cash and credit to CLC. Direct material which is used in the job. So the WIP, when the material is being transferred or being used in the job, we say it has been used into the production. So that production control account you can use, or you can say WIP, work in progress control account, to store ledger control. If it is being returned from the work, store ledger control account to WIP. If you return it to the supplier, then cost ledger to store ledger. If there is indirect material, that means overheads. So factory overhead control account debit to store ledger control account. If you make payments, wages control account debit to CLC. Right? So guys, this is something which you will be studying when you will be studying control accounts. Right? This particular thing. I taught you because it was mentioned, so I wanted you to know, right? The manufacturing cost of a work order, look at this illustration, is 1 lakh. 8% of the production against that order is spoiled, and rejection is estimated to have a realizable value of 2,000 only. Normal rate of spoilage is 2%. Now, how do I record this? Now, the acceptable limit is only 2%, but the spoilage was 8%. So the 2% spoilage, which is acceptable, the cost of it will be borne by the good units. But the 6%, which is not acceptable, it will go into costing period account. So look at it. So actual loss is 8,000 rupees. Yes. Normal loss accepted was 2,000 only. So abnormal loss is how much? 6,000. So they say the ratio is how much? 2:6, right? You could have done it directly also, 2:6. So what will be the accounting treatment? How much is the expenditure? You have done an expenditure of 2,000. How much is the expenditure you have done? The realization value, the realizable value is 2,000. Manufacturing cost is 8%. So the total cost is 8,000 rupees of that spoilage. But from that 8,000, how much should go into costing P&L account? How much should go into costing P&L account? You tell me. Should I directly put 6,000 there? Well, how should I divide this? Normal is 2 and abnormal is 6. So ratio is 2:6. So this 8,000 should be divided in what ratio? It should be divided in 2:6 ratio, yes or no? Yes. So that's what these people have done. Okay. So let's look into it. Oh. This. Okay. So how do I divide this 8,000? How do I divide this? They say the actual loss is 8,000. Normal loss should be 2,000. So the abnormal loss should be 6,000. So one way of making the entry is that 2,000, which is the normal loss, should be absorbed, or should it become the part of the cost of the product, right? And this 6,000 should go and become a part of abnormal loss. That means costing pay. But when we look at what ICAI has done, it is only 4,500 going into costing P&L account. Why is this why this particular thing is happening. Why this particular thing is happening. Any reason for why ICAI has done it? Right? First of all, they are saying that the rejection which is there has got a realizable value of only 2,000. That means out of that 8,000, 2,000 is recoverable. So how do we divide it? That means out of this 2,000 which is recoverable, in the ratio 2:6. This 6 is abnormal. This abnormal portion should go into costing P&L account, but this 2 portion, which is not abnormal, which is within acceptable limit, should become a part of the cost of the product. If this is so, that means this 2,000, we should divide it into divided by 8 ratio, yes or no? Should we do it or not? What do you say? Yes or no? Okay, let's try doing it. 2,000 into 2 divided by 8. It comes out to be 500. That means this 500 out of this 2,000, I can take it up. It is acceptable to me, right? It is acceptable to me. But 1,500 is not acceptable to me, right? That's abnormal, right? So that abnormal part should go where? It should go as a part of overheads. So what are they actually dividing? What is it that they are dividing? This 2,000, according to me, 500 is within acceptable limit. This is the recovery portion, right? So technically your spoilage is 6,000. Yes or no? So should I divide this 2,000, which is 500 into 1,500? This much I should divide. 500 into 1,500 is to 1,500 because this is it. Or should I divide that, okay, out of 8,000 of spoilage, 2,000 I could recover. So this 6,000 which is not recovered, should I put this whole into costing P&L account? No, this 6,000 also I should divide it in 2:6 ratio. What do you say? Yes or no? Because this 2 is acceptable to me. 6 is not acceptable to me. This should go into costing P&L account. So let us divide this. So what do we get? 6,000 into 2 divided by 8. So I get out with that this 1,500 is within acceptable limit. So this should be a part of overhead. Overhead means it's a part of cost. But out of this 6,000, this 4,500 is over and above the acceptable normal limit. I will not allow it to be treated as an overhead also. I will directly put it into costing. So what is the accounting entry that I get? 1,500 I treat it as overhead control account. 4,500 I treat it as my costing P&L. I don't understand why Institute has done this entry of material control account 2,000. I would not have done this, right? I would have done the entry of only 6,000. Can you tell me why Institute has done this entry of material control account? Can anybody tell me? Means if I was there, I've spent so much of time explaining you this. If I was there, I would have differentiated. Okay, I would have understood there's a loss of 8,000, 2,000 is recovered. So 6,000 is the loss. Then I would have divided. Then I would have done the entry. Overhead control account, which is acceptable, is 1,500. Costing P&L account, 4,500. And I would have done to work in progress, 6,000. But if I would have done this, Institute would have given me a 0. So can you tell me why Institute has put that 2,000 rupees? This realizable value of 2,000 means that out of this 8,000 rupees of counting, 2,000 worth of material is still capable of being used. So if at all I want to make an entry that from that WIP, this good which is spoiled, the good which is spoiled is worth 8,000, but from that 8,000, 2,000 I can recover. That means it can go back to the material, or I can say it can go down to the stores. Yes or no? That's the reason why Institute has put that recoverable amount of 2,000 into material. I really love this part of ICAI. Right? I don't know how many people have been able to understand the importance of this thing. This is very, very important. Institute has tried to explain you the logic behind it. It's fine. Okay. Okay. Right. Illustration 2, a shop floor supervisor is a small factory. They have given you a job card. Material is 70. Wages 18 hours. You work at the rate of 2 rupees 50 paisa. 45 is the cost. And then they have given us a bifurcation. They have given chargeable expenses, cost, they've added the profit. And then they have given us some profit and loss account statement. And they've asked you to analyze. Right? They've asked you to make a job cost sheet. Right? Now, it is to be noted that average hourly rate for the 3 department X, Y, Z is similar. Now, please look at here. They have just given us the direct wage rate here. They've given us the chargeable expenses. What do I do for the overheads? So department X has got 5,000 overheads. How much is the direct wages? Because they've very clearly said we absorb it. On what basis? They have given us anything? Nothing. But they have just told us that these 18 hours were 8 hours from X, 6 hours from Y, 4 hours from Z. So I know the direct wage, I know the cost, but I need to absorb the overheads also. Yes or no? I can do one thing. I can do it as a percentage of direct wages. Nothing else is given to me. So if I say, if 5,000 is the overhead, 10,000 is the direct wages, that means 50% of the direct wages is the overheads absorbed in X department. Similarly, I can do it for Y. Similarly, I can do it for Z. Once I determine a method, I can absorb the overheads. See, ICAI has done it. What ICAI has done it? Material 70. Wage rate was clear to us. It is 2 rupees 50 paisa. Yes, it's given in the question. Yes. So for X department, it is 20 rupees. For Y department, it is 15 rupees. And for Z department, it is 10 rupees. That's how this 45 rupees is built up. But I need to absorb overheads for the purpose of absorption of overheads. They said we'll absorb overheads on the basis of direct wages. Nothing else was given. Right? So once I know this, so I know if it is 20, that means I can absorb 10. This is 15, they have calculated an absorption rate. They absorbed the overhead, they got out with the works cost. Similarly, they had given us selling expenses is 20,000. Now 20,000 of selling expenses there, then how much was the total cost of goods which we have sold? What was the works cost? It was 2 lakhs. So 20,000 of selling expense and the works cost is 2 lakhs. Why did I do that? Because I have works cost. Right? I had the prime cost. I added up the factory overheads. So I have the works cost. So if I get a relationship of selling expenses with work cost, I'll be able to find out the total cost. That's exactly what they did. Now here you'll have to be smart enough. Now if you try to find out the selling expense expenditure on the basis of units, then do I have the units? Right? So you can derive that what methodology. If you try to go in by one department, it will be wrong. So selling expenses, since it's for the goods, for the total goods, you can just do it that, okay, works cost was 2 lakhs. Selling expenses were 20,000. That means 10% of the works cost is selling expenses. So this will help you to determine the job cost sheet for this particular product, wherein you are spending 70 rupees of material, 45 rupees of wages. And then you add up the profit, you get the cost sheet. This is very, very important from examination point of view. I hope I am clear. Right? So guys, you want me to repeat this overhead? Okay, I'll do that. Rahul, listen to me in this particular question. This is, and sum which is given to me. This is a job which a person needs to do, job number 303. They have told me this is the material, this is the wages, this is the chargeable expenses. So they have given me the direct prime cost of this product. And they've also told me that we need to add so much of profit. But what is incomplete in this? There are no overheads added. Yes, I need to add up overheads. Now they have not given me overheads, but they have given me some sheet. And where I can see that if department X, the direct wages are 10,000, then the overheads of that department was 5,000. So can you form a relationship? 5,000 divided by 10,000 into 100. So you say if wages in X department are 100, then overheads is 50% of it, that is 50. Similarly for Y, similarly for Z. Yes, there is selling expense also. Now selling expense, they established a relationship with the works cost. Yes, once we established it, it was easier for me to find out the cost of this particular job. Yes. Okay, so now let me look at any questions which you people have. Till now, no questions. So you had this question, we have Rabi, how 1500 comes? Friends, for me, this is very important. Look at this question. A job cost has got 1 lakh rupees. They say 8% is spoiled. That means 8% of this is how much? Rabi, how much is it, beta? 8,000. Yes. Now let's evaluate. Now this is spoiled or rejected, but they say if it is spoiled, that means you can't spend any money. This is not defective item. This is spoiled item. Now if it is spoiled, look at it. From your work in progress, you need to remove this 8,000 rupees. Yes or no? Because it is spoiled. So if you want to remove it, to WIP, 8,000. You need to credit WIP account, right? But what do you debit? Now, 2,000 rupees is recoverable. That means that 2,000 rupees, what is recoverable? It will be the material only, no? So material control account debit, 2,000. Now, what is the difference? 6,000. Now, 6,000, what is acceptable to me? Rabi, what is acceptable to me? I was ready for defectives to the extent of 2%, but defectives were worth 8%. That means 2 was acceptable to me, but 8 came up. That means 6, I'm not accepting. This should go into costing period. 2, I accept. It is normal. So what is normal will go as a part of overhead because I am ready to absorb it. That means what do you do? This 6,000, if you divide it in 2:6 ratio, that means 2 by 8. That means what is acceptable goes into factory overhead. What is not acceptable goes directly into P&L account, whatever comes in. Yes? I hope I'm clear. Any other question? Ma'am, job cost sheet can be asked. Actually, we don't, but can you see one thing? By doing this job cost sheet, don't you think costing is becoming easier? Yeah. Manish, yes, Manish, absolutely right. So with this, guys, everything which I wanted to explain to you guys with respect to job costing, material, single output costing is over, right? There are hardly any sums which we can actually give you for this particular topic because as you can see, when you will do your accounting systems, integral and non-integral, you should know this concept. So you get the sums there. When you'll be doing your cost sheet, you get the sums there. You should be very clear with the concept of spoiled and defective. How do you treat them, right? And you should know the difference between unit output, batch, and job costing. You should know the concept of EBQ. That's it. That's all what you should know when you're doing this chapter. Unit, batch, and job costing. So when you say job costing, you should know the concept of your cost sheet. so that you're able to apply it, right? You should know your basics, variable and fixed, how to bifurcate it. Batch costing, you should be very clear that why should I produce in batch? So can I suggest an optimum batch? And single output costing is nothing but you should know how to make a cost sheet, right? Cost sheet, you must be having a separate lecture for cost sheet also. You'll be having a lecture for accounting also. So I have done the base work for you guys, right? Rest the respective faculty will take forward. Thank you so much. It was really, really lovely teaching you. I hope you have understood what I wanted to convey. Thank you so much. No more questions. So thank you. Thank you so much. Good night. Have a great night. Bye-bye.